Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, my name is Denise and welcome to my channel. So today what I'm going to be talking about is my emergency C-section that I had with my fourth child. So for those that don't know, this was not my first pregnancy. This was my fourth pregnancy. But I'm going to talk about the events that transpired prior to my emergency C-section. So this is more like a testimony. I feel like God spoke to me in my dream. He came to me and gave me a vision. I feel like for that reason, my son is here today. So I'm going to go ahead and explain the events prior to my C-section. So I was about maybe 4 or 5 months pregnant when I just had this dream, this really creepy dream about something not being right with the baby, him being kind of stuck in my stomach. I had the exact same dreams in this back to back in the same week. So anyways, let's just fast forward. So now I'm in my third trimester now. I found myself in my third trimester standing up a lot because it was hard to sit for long periods. My baby gets frantic. The only way I can really explain his movements is he goes into panic mode. He's just pushing and kicking like crazy. So anyway, so that started to get worse as I progressed in my third trimester. This is my concerns to my OB, and I was like, okay, this is what's going on. I think something's wrong, because at the same time I realized that my baby didn't roll, he didn't flip like my other 3 kids did. And I noticed that my baby was always I can kind of figure out his feet were in by a rib cage. And I was like, that's weird. He's been in the same position for a very long time, and he hasn't left this position. Of course, my OB reassured me that everything was fine. She was like, baby's growing fine. The heart rate is good. The baby's developing. She's like, I don't think anything's wrong with the baby. So let's move on. Fast forward now, about 37, 38 weeks. And it's very difficult for me to sleep. I'm becoming very tired. I'm constantly on my feet because it's really hard for me to sit, because as soon as I sit, my baby starts to go into panic mode. So I'm I go to her, I was about 37, 38 weeks, and I'm like, listen, can you induce me? Because I think something's wrong, and I think the baby needs to come out. And she's like, okay. She's like, you know what? I can induce you, but the baby's head hasn't dropped. So you're probably going to end up potentially having a C-section if I induce you, because the baby is just not ready to come out. And I was like, oh my goodness. She performed a membrane sweep and said, you know what, don't worry, Denise, you're almost there. Just hang on, be patient. Fine. So I go in on my 40-week appointment. I'm in tears because I'm like, listen to me. I'm like, something's wrong. I'm just going off, telling her everything that I'm experiencing. And she goes, okay, I'm going to send you to get fetal monitoring. So and also, she sends me for an ultrasound, but the ultrasound is not scheduled until the day after. So anyways, I get the fetal monitoring. I get hooked up to the fetal monitoring system. They say that the doctor says everything's normal, sends me home, and I'm like, okay, of course, I go into labor without getting my ultrasound done. So I'm excited because I'm going into labor, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, we didn't find out what's wrong with my baby, and now I'm in labor. So let's just hope this labor is quick and easy. So anywho, so I go to the hospital. When I get there, I'm already 4 centimeters dilated, but my baby's head still has not dropped yet. My baby's really high up. So, okay, so I go ahead and I get the epidural. So I get the epidural. So they're just waiting. They're monitoring me to see my progression. And they're constantly coming in and out to check me. And I guess at this point, the baby's heart rate was decelerating late. So usually during a contraction, your baby's heart rate will typically drop a little bit. But what was happening with my baby at the time was that his heart rate would drop during the contraction. And then once my contraction is done, it will continue to drop. So they were getting concerned. They kept coming in and out, checking me out. And they tried to move me into different positions. And I said, listen, I cannot lay on my left side, because when I lay on my left side, this is what happens. The baby freaks out. So they're like, okay, let's just try to put you on your left side. Let's try to move you around. Let's try to see, because it's been a few hours. You're not progressing. The baby's heart rate is dropping, and all that stuff is happening. So I said, okay, let's go ahead. Let's try it out. So of course they put me on my left side, and of course the baby's heart rate just plummets, right? So they come rushing back in. They put me, saying, okay, you're like, you know what? Go back onto your right side. I'm like, okay, cool. So it just kept trying to position me in different positions, but no position would work. So I just end up staying on my right side. So at this point now, I'm starting to feel the contractions on my left side. So I call them and I'm like, I can feel the contractions all along my left side, but not on my right side. So they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I can feel it. So they go and they get ice, and they put the ice along the left side of my stomach, and I can feel the cold. So of course, if you can feel the ice cold on your belly, you're not numb. So they put it on my right side, and I feel absolutely nothing. For some reason, because I had spent so many hours on one side, the epidural was only working on one side, which is weird. But that's what was basically happening. So because they're not able to move me and do all that stuff, because the baby's heart rate was continually dropping and out of whack, I had the external monitoring system on my belly. So they said they wanted to put one internally. So an internal monitoring system, which they insert vaginally. So basically they explained they wanted to insert it so they wanted to get a more accurate read and monitor the baby more closely, because they were not sure what was really happening and why things were. So they inserted the monitoring system vaginally, and for some reason it could not really stay on the baby. Like, they tried to place it on the baby. I'm not sure where they placed it, but she came in that room several times to reinsert it. But every time she came in the room to reinsert it, she looked at me with like this look. Like, she gave me this look. After she tried a few times, she just said, forget about it. She just took it. She's like, you know what? It's not working. Shortly after that, she came and she said to me and my hubby that, okay, you've been in labor for 6-7 hours. You haven't moved. You're still 4 centimeters dilated. We've tried to move you. We've tried so many different things. Your baby's heart rate is dropping. Now your baby's heart rate is increasing. I think she had said my baby's heart rate was at 180 or 185, something along those lines. So it was really high, and at this point now, I was getting a fever. So now I have some type of infection or something brewing in my body, and now they're afraid that I'm going to pass my infection onto the baby. And of course, they can't explain why his heart rate is so out of whack. So she says to me, we think you're going to have to get a C-section right now. Like, they did mention to me, like, throughout the whole process, that they were thinking that maybe C-section would be something that maybe I would have to, like, think about. They did say that to me earlier on in my labor, but I was feeling very optimistic and feeling like, you know what, my baby, I'm going to start progressing and so on and so forth. So at this point, this is the second time they've mentioned C-section to me, and now they're coming with the documents for me to sign, because they're like, you know what, you have to have a C-section right now. And I was like, what? Right now? And she's like, so she just went over again, like, what was happening with the baby, what was happening with me, and the baby needed to come out, like, as soon as possible. So I was like, oh my God. I was like, I didn't even have any time to process things. Like, so she left the room. I looked at my hubby and I'm like, I knew this was going to happen. I knew I was going to get a C-section. I grab his hand and I literally start praying, because I'm so scared. I'm terrified. Like, there's just so much to process at this point. I grab his hand and I just start praying to God. I'm like, Lord, please, like, give me the strength to do this. Let everything go well with myself and the baby. And before I could even finish the prayer, the doctors barge in the room, ready to take me. And I was just like, holy moly. Like, it felt like I literally had like seconds to process everything. So they give my hubby like his scrubs and all that stuff he's supposed to change into. He holds on to it. And they literally just wheel me down to like the OR. But prior to that, because I was having the issue with the epidural, because I was only half like numb, they kept asking me like what my numbness level was. And I'm like, I cannot explain to you my numbness level, because I was feeling contractions. Like I was just like, I can feel contractions. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I can feel it. I think they were going to increase my epidural. I don't know if they felt like maybe it's better that the anesthesiologist just give me a spinal. So anyways, they wheeled me down to the OR. The anesthesiologist explains to me the procedure. Like, I'm freaking out. I'm scared. Like, my hubby's not in the room because he has to wait outside the room. They're trying to, like, you know, calm me down, trying to talk to me. Like, all the doctors and the nurses were so supportive. They were so helpful. They were trying to explain everything to me in the short time they had. And they did a great job trying to explain everything to me, even though it was literally just bouncing off my ears. Like, everything was a blur. Like, my heart was, I was so scared. Like, my brain was like going 100 miles an hour. But they did an absolute great job. They're awesome. But give me the spinal, and literally, like, within seconds is like, I don't feel anything. Like, it just feels like warm, tingly. I don't even remember how it feels, but you just know, like, you're just losing, like, feeling below your, you're losing feeling in your legs. So anyways, they laid me down. I start panicking. Like, they're like, can you feel that? Can you feel that? I'm like, I'm like, no, I can't feel that. And they're like, finally, they're about to start. My hubby comes in. I just grab his hand, and they start the C-section, and I don't feel anything. Like, thank God. Like, I didn't feel anything. I was really, really numbed. I didn't feel anything. You do feel like a little bit of pressure, like, of course, pulling and tugging. You do feel a little bit of pressure. So they take the baby out, and my baby is barely able to cry. Like, I remember the doctor saying, he goes, "Oh, buddy," or whatever, little man, or something along those lines. He goes, "No wonder." He goes, he had the cord wrapped around his neck twice. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, twice? I'm like, that's why he couldn't roll, and that's why he couldn't come down into my pelvis. That's why, like, whenever I would sit in certain positions, it would literally cut off the blood flow to his body. Like it'll cut off the blood flow, the oxygen. Like, that makes so much sense. And because it was wrapped around twice, it was wrapped around so tight, like, he was barely able to, like, even cry. Take him out, and they bring him over to me. Like, my hubby's holding him, and they bring him over to me. And, like, I was so out of it. I just looked at him, and I just couldn't even, like, I just wasn't, like, I was having, like, an outer body experience or something. They close me up, whatever, and they take us to, like, the recovery room, where they keep you for, I think, 2 hours just to monitor whether or not, like, the feeling in your legs are coming back. They check your temperature. They check your blood pressure. And because I had a fever, so now they started me on antibiotics. So they're constantly checking my temperature to make sure, like, my temperature is going down. They're checking the baby and so on and so forth. So I put him on me. So I was able to put him on my chest and do, like, skin to skin, which was very nice. In the recovery room is where we named my son. I looked up at my hubby, and I'm like, what do you want to name him? And he says Prince. So I was like, okay, his name's going to be Prince. So after 2 hours, they bring you back to your actual room. They bring you to a room where that's where you will be staying. After C-section, it's really difficult to breastfeed. It's very painful. It's very painful. It's painful to sit up. It's painful to move. My pain was being managed with, like, of course, with pain medication. Literally, I believe they want you to start walking. I believe the following day after you have, I believe it's a following day they want you to start walking. Now looking back and remembering when he used to, like, he would be frantically kicking me, frantically moving. Now I realize that his oxygen was being depleted. So I feel like I'm really thankful to God that allowed me to, like, be aware of that. I was very, very careful in making sure that, like, every minute of the day, like, you know, like, he was okay, and I was not sitting too long, and I was not laying down on the wrong side, and I was paying attention, and he was in control. He was telling me what I can do, what I can't do. I just wanted to share my experience with you, my emergency C-section. The reason why I decided to make this video is because I just wanted to inform as many people as possible as to the importance of, like, really paying attention to, like, fetal movement. I feel like the fact that I was so in tune and paying attention to, like, every movement, I think that helped to save my son's life. Please like if you like this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And I appreciate the love. I appreciate you guys watching my videos. I hope this video is informative and can help somebody. And see you guys in the next video. Bye.